for some updates.
All right, thanks, Teddy. First of all, I was hoping maybe there'd be an announcement today on the new executive director. I am hearing it's really close. I start feeling like a broken record, but
It's close.
it's close. Hannah was on the same call I was on before this meeting. It's very close, so look forward to that soon.
Oh, that's very close. Not just close, but very close.
Very close, yeah, yeah, true, very close. I'm still hopeful maybe this week there'll be an announcement, but we'll see. Other things to report on, Dee did hold a meeting with some stakeholders on legislative ideas last week. That was last week, I think. And there were some concerns with permitting expressed. I'm also hearing that from providers. There is support for the low-density pilot program, where the border-to-border program would be able to fund up to 75% of project costs. Affordability is becoming more of an issue, and there were some concerns with mapping expressed. So DEED is putting together some legislative ideas at this point, and then it goes to the governor's office, and then we see if anything ends up in the governor's proposal. Because we are an executive branch agency, DEED always follows what the governor decides. On the federal funding front, we were required to submit new program plans for the low-density pilot program, even though it's real similar to the border-to-border program. This is where we can fund up to 75% and a cap of $10 million with $30 million that was approved by the legislature to use. But that Treasury did require a new program plan for that. And then we also submitted a program plan for the line extension program. And again, that was $15 million approved by the legislature to help pay for those situations where a customer might have a long driveway, and so they get like a $5,000 quote from the company, and they can't afford that. So that's a barrier to their getting broadband service at their location. So those program plans have been submitted. For what's left over then of that $60 million appropriation, we just had to send an official email to Treasury saying we would roll that into the already approved border-to-border program. So when we have our next grant round, it would be the capital projects funding, plus we're going to put in the $25 million state funding for fiscal year 24, although it can't be extended until after July 1st. So that'll be in the next round. The low-density pilot program will be a part of that round, and then the rest of the money will be used for traditional border-to-border. And our plan right now is to do that once we announce the recipients of the current round where we're reviewing applications, plus we have good assurance from Treasury that they're okay with the program plan parameters, so there isn't anything they want us to change that would need to be reflected in the application. So that should happen maybe yet this year. So then providers would have both rounds under their belts and know what money they were going to get by the time spring construction season started. On the line extension program, that by statute has to be up by November 1st, and we are working through that, and that will be available for folks to sign up. It's a reverse auction, so residents can sign up their address, then we send the list of providers. It can be challenged whether they have service already or not, and then we put it out for an auction, and then there's winning bidders. So no construction would actually start on that program until about a year from now, if you follow the timeline that's in statute. And again, that's $15 million. It would pay up to $25,000 per location. That's a really high line extension amount, but if you took $15 million divided by 25,000, I think it's about 600 locations, if I did my math right. So that's where we are with the capital projects funding. And Treasury has acknowledged receipt. We're waiting for questions from them, and we would expect they'll have some. They did on our first program plan for border-to-border. On BEAD and digital equity, Hannah did a good job outlining the digital equity process. Both of those applications are in for the planning grants, and we've been getting like a number of questions. Seems like the questions from NTIA are kind of done, and now they're with NIST, which are more the financial and the documentation stuff. And like Hannah mentioned, Louisiana did get approval of their BEAD and their digital equity. They're the only state so far. So those are in process. And then most of our time right now is Hannah's doing digital equity. The other 4 of us in the office are really trying to focus between interruptions on reviewing the grant applications that came in, hopefully, and some of the timing, it'll depend on when we can get the package of recommendations to the commissioner, which we're hoping by late October, and then the turnaround time will vary depending on how much time the commissioner and discussions with the governor's office is usually the process there, whether they want a big announcement or it'll just be an announcement. So that's kind of most of what we're working on in the office. If anyone has any questions?
Diane, has the challenge process ended now for the border to border?
Challenges were due September 8th, I think. We did get a number of challenges, so we are
Still working through those, or are they?
Yes, the way we're doing it is we'll only have the back and forth negotiation on a challenge if it's an application that's scored high. We don't want to make work and ask questions about a challenge when it's not even anything we're considering marketing. So.
Brian Cranbeer has a question.
Thanks for the update, Diane. Just wanted to make sure I got that down right. So there's a chance that you could do the low density or a partial low density program by year end, or is that going to take review and probably not likely going to be available to come next year? So just clarification that I could do for
The low density pilot program, which will be very popular, so I don't think 30 million will go very far, but we will include that in the next grant round, which hopefully will open. I think it should open yet in 2022.
Thank you.
Other questions for Diane? Orgy?
You're muted, Steve.
You're on mute.
Sorry. You have a total number of grant requests and the total amount requested?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think we had 135 actual applications, and I believe the total dollar amount requested was in the ballpark of 182 million. So a little over twice as much as we have available. And that number probably is small if you've been paying attention to what other states have received, but that is probably largely due to the fact that we have a $5 million cap on our grant awards. So we got a large number, it's just not $30 million or $40 million requests like some other states.
I think, that's really critical information that we need to share with our elected officials and the governor. Let them know, again, desperate need, the need to modify our current legislation to increase the cap amount. We can allow these providers actually do large projects. If Minnesota is going to get ahead of the game again, we need to target the current legislation. Somehow we've got to get that message across going into this short session. Our only chance. I think that's valuable information that this task force needs to run up the flagpole.
Yes, and that's another reason we want to do the low density pilot program as fast as we can. We are required to write a report on it by December 31st. Obviously, if we have something to report on it before session ends in 2023, we can provide that information as well. So if it's way oversubscribed, and we know that during session, we can relay that information to the legislature. budget year, so it's the long session, and a lot of the time is going to be spent on the budget, and there are a lot of new legislators that will be coming in.
50%, yeah.
So there's hopefully going to be an opportunity to do a lot of education as well, because this is a very complex topic.
Other questions, comments for Diane? All right. Thank you, Diane, for the update. Okay. Well, okay. Moving on to the next piece is just the updates, quick updates from the subgroups. Time list of affordability options. I'm gonna take the lead.
Yeah, I can do that. But that's okay with Mark.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In our last subgroup meeting, we started a list of challenges to begin our homework on thinking about recommendations and what are some of the challenges that we've been hearing about over this last year. And we started kind of a laundry list of challenges like affordability and language and technical skill level, that relevance idea that Hannah brought up, access, equipment, information literacy, and things like that. So we listed a bunch of those in our meeting, and then Scott was kind enough to come to the meeting and give us a kind of a quick overview of the documents that he's prepared for us again this year, with, you know, places where we can fill things in, made sure we had links to those, and we started filling in some ideas on that document, and everyone left the meeting with homework to continue to fill in their rough ideas on those documents, so that at our next subgroup meeting, we can kind of look over those rough ideas and see if any consolidation or editing is needed. So we're getting going.
Thank you, Yvonne. Any questions or comments for this subgroup? Okay, not hearing anything. So moving on to funding, mapping, and usage subgroup. Steve Bensky.
Our group tried to meet twice, but we did not succeed. So our next one's scheduled for October 5th as a reminder for those on that subgroup. And we'll try again. So unless if subgroup members want to comment, I'll just open it to them, because we didn't have a chance to talk as a small group.
Not hearing anything. Steve, one thing that has come up, there was an inquiry, from the Commissioner Grove, just a question around if, as a task force, we were going to have a recommendation around what will it cost to get everyone served, and whether, in that recommendation, is there going to be a thought around how much the state should put in? Right, so that's just something for the subgroup to consider. Obviously, we'll have it in the larger conversation with the entire task force, and some of that is, I know there was a one-pager that the Office of Broadband had put together last year. Take a look at that. There was our recommendation from when we said 120 million or whatever, but I think it may be one of the things we could look at is, do we want to make a recommendation around that, and if it is, how much, and all that type of stuff. So.
Okay, thank you. We'll talk about that next week too.
Any other comments for this subgroup?
Steve, I will get you your forms probably by end of day tomorrow. So after the meeting, I'll get the.
Sounds good.
Scott, I don't know if you have any comments from your end. Thinking about.
Not at this time, other than to let Steve know he'll be getting his docs before his meeting on Tuesday, and I will be joining them.
Thank you. All right. Kind of from my end, you've seen some good topics today. A couple of things to think about. I think as we go forward, we're going to continue to try to do this hybrid approach. I think having some folks face to face is really helpful. restarting that momentum of getting back together. It's good. And then obviously the topics for the next meeting, we do have a number of topics swirling and speakers that we could bring on. But at the same time, now that we're getting closer to the end of the year, we probably want to spend more time together talking about recommendations and some of the more meaty topics that's coming up in the subgroups. So those are always good for face-to-face, right? I think that's one area when you're on virtual, yeah, it helps with hands up and who goes next, but it's hard to get deeper into the conversations as obviously we have lots of other distractions. So next meeting will probably be at least an option to be there face-to-face, and we will reserve more time for conversation and some updates and where are we and what are some of the things we should be thinking about. So that'll be good. And as Diane mentioned, being a budget year, there's lots of things up in the air. So there's lots of different ways we could go, and it'd be good to align on, sort of how we want to put together some key recommendations. As far as format, as Scott has mentioned before, we'll probably follow the format of last year. It was easy to digest, easy to present to others, easy to put together as well. So that hits on all those marks. As far as topics themselves, or even venue for that matter, and speakers, if you have any other ideas, please continue to send them my way, Diane and Carol as well, and we'll make sure to see if certain speakers are available to talk to us and will come up during the time slots that we have. And again, we'll have more time for the subgroup discussions, but it is good to inject a few other presentations in there as well. So maybe not as extensive as we've had in the last couple of meetings. Yeah, that's all I have from my end. Any from task force members, any other questions, comments, concerns, topics that you want to bring up at the moment? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. Anybody else that's not on the task force that's in the meeting or in the virtual meeting that wants to make a statement or have some sort of a public announcement? Okay. I'm not hearing anything as well either. So with that, I want to thank everybody for their engagement. I want to thank the speakers for coming on today. And Steve Georgie, you have your hand up.
Well, I just, one of the conversations we had at the Minnesota Rural Broadband Conference was the frustrations of our smaller ISP providers, and I know we have one of them for sure that's on the committee. And the concern was to have them share their perspective on staffing, availability of materials, sourcing, etc. And again, we had speakers from other parts of the country talking about what they're doing to address some of these issues. And we've talked about this before. Should the state be involved in helping to secure fiber or whatever? But it might be a good idea to consider that as a portion of our next meeting to get some of those perspectives. And I don't want to put Dave on the spot. We can obviously invite others, but I think that's an important piece moving forward. How Minnesota is going to meet the challenges. We've got 2 years in the last 4 years without any border-to-border projects, and we can't. So, just my thought.
That's a good suggestion, and yeah, I mean maybe we can even expand some of the subgroup discussion into that. So we'll see, talk to Dave and Brian and see if there's something there around kind of getting some of those thoughts in there. Good suggestion. Okay. Not seeing any other hands up, not seeing any physical hands up either. Again, thanks everybody for your engagement. Hopefully you found the topics to be relevant and good for sort of thought process as we get into recommendation season for us. And with that, we will adjourn for today, and we'll kind of pick back up in October. And again, be some sort of a hybrid meeting, but more information to come on location and timing and all those kind of things. So with that, thank you very much and have a good rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.